to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast, the most listened to daily Miami Dolphins podcast on the internet.
Miami's got the Dolphins, the greatest of all.
Come on, Dolphins fans. Time to fins up.
We're in the air, we're on the ground, we're always in control. And when you say Miami, you're talking Super Bowl. Cause we're the Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number one. Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number one.
Hello, Miami Dolphins fans. How are you today? And thank you for listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast. I am your host, Michael Leva, joined by a very special guest, Justin Spears, who covers Arizona football for the Tucson Star and the Wildcaster. And he can also be heard on ESPN Tucson each day, 7 to 9 a.m. And you can follow him on social media at Justin Esports. That's the most important plug right there. Justin, how you doing today?
Doing good, Mike. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little Jonah Savaiinaea, and I think I said the name right. I think I got it down now after he's been picked by the Dolphins. That's a tough last name to pronounce. But he was picked by the Dolphins around about a week or so back. I saw he could have returned to college. He had one more season if he wanted to. Was there any talk of him heading back to Arizona, or was this like the plan from the start of last season for him where if he played well, he's going pro?
Yeah, we always knew that Big Jonah was going to end up going to the NFL. And kudos to you for the last name pronunciation. The correct way to say it is Jonah Savaiinaea.
Oh boy, I'm never going to get that.
I've said, yeah, exactly. But I've said Savaiinaea. A lot of people have said Savaiinaea. So, and Jonah's, trust me, he's not going to get offended if you say Savaiinaea.
Good.
He's just not that kind of guy. But,
I was going to call him Jonah. I'm just going to call him Jonah. How about that?
And that's the thing is a lot of people here down in Tucson, they just called him Big Jonah, right? And when in the first 2 years when he was at Arizona, they also had another running back named Jonah Coleman. So whenever you said Big Jonah, everyone knew exactly who you're talking about. You were talking about Big Jonah Savaiinaea. But, yeah, I mean, it was always the plan for him to go to the NFL after his third year just because, I mean, he showed the framework of an NFL offensive lineman just as a first-year guy. You know, he started as a true freshman at right guard. And, I mean, Jed Fish will be the first one to tell you it, Arizona's former head coach who's now at Washington. When Jonah first got to Arizona, he was an early enrollee. So he was supposed to be a second semester senior in high school. And during spring ball, Chris Forrester, who's a longtime NFL offensive line coach.
Oh, I think we know him quite well in Miami, yeah.
Most definitely, yeah. And Chris Forrester, he went to one of Arizona's practices and said, and looked at Jonah and was like, who's that guy? I mean, that guy looks like a legit prospect. And Jed was like, well, that guy should be in high school right now. So he came in as a big time player. And I think, you know, if he was on the mainland here I mean, obviously Hawaii's in the United States, but if he was, you know, in California or playing somewhere else where he had more eyes on him, I think he would have been a high rated prospect. But he comes to Arizona as a 3-star prospect from Hawaii, played at the same high school as Tua Tagovailoa, St. Louis High School in Honolulu. And he starts as a right guard. And then, you know, we see the versatility for Jonah the following 2 seasons because he played at right tackle. And due to injuries in 2024, he had to move over to the left side and play some left tackle. So we're talking about in 3 years, he played right guard, right tackle, left tackle, and excelled at all 3 positions. So he's a versatile offensive lineman. You can plug him anywhere. He's got the arm length to play on the outside if you really want to, but his frame, being a 6'5", 324-pounder, he is going to be an ideal guard. And I think the Dolphins really got a steal in Jonah. Whether he plays on the left side or the right side, one of those guard spots, he's really going to be a great player and could become an all-pro when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I think he's going to play on the right side because on the left they have a young left tackle And on the right side, they have an experienced right tackle. So I don't think they want the two inexperienced guys next to each other. Just taking a guess, I could be wrong. I think they're going to try to split them up and maybe put the rookie next to the experienced guy and put a more experienced offensive lineman next to the young left tackle. But we'll see about that. But you're right, because I was doing some research on Jonah. All the offers he got out of high school were all like West Coast, Hawaii, obviously, San Diego State, UNLV, Arizona State. Syracuse was in there, and I'm like, and I'm a Syracuse guy, as you can see. I'm like, why Syracuse? Oh, Dino Babers is from that area. He must have been in on him out there too. But yeah, smaller schools, and he ends up there at Arizona. So when he played tackle versus guard, did he excel at one more than the other? Because here in Miami, he was picked to solve a problem. They have nothing at guard. And I think that's where he's going to be pigeonholed, at least to start his NFL journey. Did he excel at one of the spots compared to the other, or was he equally as good at both?
I think he was equally good at all three positions that he played on the offensive line. And Jonah, he's got no problem moving to guard. Even though the last 2 seasons at Arizona, he was playing tackle, he will be the first one to tell you, I look up to Mike Iupati, who was a great guard at the NFL level.
I remember that name, yep.
Yeah, and Jonah looks up to those kind of guys. So he'll be the first one to tell you, like, I'm trying to play guard. I'm trying to be right there in the middle and just maul people. And I thought as a true freshman, he did a great job at right guard. And then at right tackle, he was excellent. And even when he moved over to the left side, he was awesome there as well. And the thing that is, really just one of Jonah's best qualities as a player is his availability. Knock on wood here. I'm hoping that he stays healthy for his.
We need that in
career.
Miami. We've had a lot of injuries in Miami with a lot of players. That is a big deal. That's a big deal you just hit on right there.
Yeah. Well, fortunately for Big Jonah, he played in 36 of the 37 games when he was at Arizona. The only game that he missed at the U of A was the very last game of the season because, he got injured in that road loss to TCU, and, he suited up for the very last game of the season, but they were out of bowl contention, and they also got smoked by Arizona State too. But, he tried to suit up and warm up, and he could just barely move. And so they made the decision to sideline him. He's got bigger aspirations down the road. And so which was a smart decision. But, he got healthy and then went to he had his Big 12 Pro Day and all of that. I believe he was also at the combine too. And that's where he did all of his running, had one of the fastest 40-yard dash times for an offensive lineman, which doesn't mean much if you're an O-lineman. But if you look at the 10-yard splits, Big Jonah, had one of the fastest times. So he's got the strength, he's got the agility, and he's also got the ability to stay healthy, which I think is, one of his best traits as a player. And he's also a great leader too. I can't.
That was my next question. How is he to cover? How is he as a quote unquote locker room guy on that team as Arizona? Was he someone who's looked up to type of deal?
Totally. Absolutely. And, when Jonah first committed to Arizona, when he first signed to Arizona, he went to the Polynesian Bowl over there in Hawaii, and he was the leader for the haka. And when you're the leader of that traditional Polynesian dance, that's a big deal. It's a huge deal. You're anointed as the leader of the group. And so he led the haka at the Polynesian Bowl, and then he comes to Arizona, is great as a true freshman. In his second season, Arizona wins 10 games, which is one of 4 teams in Arizona history to win at least 10 games in a season. And Jonah came to Arizona when the program was rebuilding. He was a part of that 2022 recruiting class that also had Tetairoa McMillan, who went in the first round to the Carolina Panthers. And that recruiting class, they came to Arizona after the Wildcats went 1-11. And so he saw what Arizona was building, wanted to be a part of that rebuild, and they got it to a point where they were a nationally relevant program. They beat Oklahoma in the Alamo Bowl, and Jonah Savaiinaea was a big part of that success. And then Jed Fish goes to Washington. And in the era of the transfer portal,
It
where it's so
cripples you. It
it's
cripples you.
oh, totally. And he did it in January after the first window had already
Yep.
passed. And so here at Arizona, we were like, oh no, is is everyone just going to follow Jed to Washington or just go elsewhere? And Noah Fafita, the quarterback, Tetairoa McMillan, Jonah Savaiinaea, and others, they decided, okay, everyone thinks we're going to zig and dip out of here, but let's zag and let's stay here and let's continue what we built here at the U of A. So he could have easily left, but he's a loyal guy and he wanted to finish what he started at Arizona. Now, did it turn out to be the successful right off into the sunset story? No, because Arizona went 4-8 and they had all sorts of issues. But I think there's something to be said about the temptation of him easily going somewhere else to take more money or take the easy route and go to Washington with Jed. But he stayed at Arizona and finished out his career. And the players looked up to him. He was a captain for the Wildcats. He wasn't the ultimate raw guy, but he also worked with a lot of the younger players and was always available to mentor the younger offensive linemen. So all in all, Jonah Savaiinaea is a great person, a great player. And I think if the Dolphins do right by him, we're going to be seeing a guy who's a Miami lifer and also a guy that's going to be potentially a Pro Bowler or maybe even all pro guard.
Yeah, it sort of speaks to who he is as a person. It speaks to his character that he stayed. And you don't see that a lot these days in college football. In fact, you almost never see it at all. Everyone's out for themselves, got their hand out from the coaches to the players. It's like, where can I get 10 cents more? And if it's just 10 cents, I don't care. I'm going to take it. And they bolt. So that does say a lot. Last question about Jonah, and then I do want to ask you about Arizona football. And this is a hot topic amongst fans of the Dolphins where they're split. Miami was at pick 48 in round 2. They gave up a lot. They gave up their a pick in round 3 and a pick in round 4 to move up 11 spots to take Jonah at pick 37. And why it's a hot topic for a lot of fans of Dolphins, about 5 years ago, they did a similar trade where they moved up about 8 spots in round 2 to select Liam Eichenberg. Liam Eichenberg out of Notre Dame has been a bust of epic proportions for the Dolphins. So a lot of fans still have scars about trading up in round 2 to the top of round 2 and taking an offensive lineman. Miami gave up a lot. And if they stayed there, they probably would not have gotten him at pick 48. There's a lot of rumors that the Patriots wanted him just one pick later at 38. So that is a spot he might have went if that didn't happen, that trade. Do you think the trade up and what they parted with to select him? Now, what you've said so far is going to put a lot of fans at ease who might have been uneasy with the trade, hearing a lot of, high character guy, plays all these spots, plays them equally well for the most part. They gave up a lot. What were your thoughts on the trade of them parting with a pick in round 3 and round 4 to move up to take him at the top of round 2? And in the long question, I know, in the lead up to the draft, were you hearing him going top round 2, late round 2, round 3, what were you hearing about that?
Yeah, I looked at several mock drafts all throughout the year and just to see where Tetairoa McMillan was going to land. And because, he was a high round pick. So I was always curious about, where he was going to land, if he was going to be a top 10 guy or maybe even a top, 20 guy or so. But then Jonah Savaiinaea was a name that constantly popped up late in that first round. And, consistently he was the guy that was somewhere between, 22 to 30. And he was always considered a first round pick. And then maybe in the last month and a half or so leading up to the draft, we started to see Jonah's stock go more towards one of the last picks of the first round or even an early second round pick. So I think the Dolphins, honestly, they got a first rounder. Jonah Savaiinaea is a first round talent, and he showed that all throughout his time at Arizona. So I think, yes, even though the Dolphins gave up a lot, I think the return on investment is going to be a very positive one, because I think Jonah is certainly worth it. And I think it shows a lot about the guy that they're willing to part ways with all those assets just so they could trade up to get him. And Jonah is a guy, like I said, high character, great player, great work ethic. And even though they, just missed each other I think there's something to be said about the fact that his new quarterback played at the same high school that he went to. And Jonah Savaiinaea even mentioned it when he was first drafted to you guys that, I've only ever blocked for Polynesian quarterbacks. He did it. He did it at St. Louis High School. And then when he got to Arizona, he blocked for Jaden Delora. And then Jaden Delora got hurt. In comes Noah Fafita, another Polynesian quarterback. And now he's blocking for Tua. And Jonah Savaiinaea said, I think God only wants me to block for my people. So he's very excited about the opportunity to block for Tua. And I think Miami Dolphins fans, they're going to be very happy about what Jonah brings to the table.
Yep. And as I've been saying since the draft, if he turns out to be a very good player, no one's going to remember the trade in a year or two. You don't remember those trades on draft days. Now, if for some reason it's not working out, that's all fans are going to remember is the trade. But if he turns out to be a very good player, the trade is just going to be an afterthought. So, yeah, a couple questions here about Arizona before I let you go. Sure. Arizona, one of those schools that has changed conferences recently, now in the Big 12. Are they happy in the Big 12, or are they like most schools waiting for a call from the Big 10 to, hey, I know you took Washington, Oregon, Southern Cal. We're free too. I'm sure they are, but they won't say it. Is that the case? Because you have the SEC, you got the Big 10, and then you got the Big 12 and ACC, who are clearly second tier. How are they liking life in the Big 12?
Well, they love life in the Big 12, especially as a basketball conference, because I think the Big 12 from top to bottom is arguably the best conference in all of college basketball. And Arizona being a prominent basketball brand.
Basketball school, yep.
It works well. So I think it's a perfect marriage with the Big 12. And, we're starting to see some new rivalries formed. I love that Arizona and UCLA are still maintaining that basketball rivalry, and they're playing, I think, on a neutral site, I think, for the next couple of years.
That's nice. That makes sense. Yeah.
I mean, it's the best in terms of the rivalries on the West Coast.
Yeah.
Arizona, UCLA basketball is up there. So they're still maintaining that. But then Arizona, they're going up against Kansas every year in basketball, and Texas Tech and Houston and Baylor. So there's a lot of good basketball brands in the Big 12, and Arizona is one of them. As far as football goes, I think the Wildcats like it a lot because now they can really capitalize on the state of Texas when it comes to recruiting. And Texas has a lot of players. I think, as I read somewhere, that they had the most states that had the state that had the most natives drafted this year was the state of Texas. They had like 45.
Makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah. And so for Arizona now playing against Texas schools on a yearly basis, they can really tap into that market and attract some players. And Texas is a gold mine. Even if you think you got, a lower tier prospect, there's a good chance that this guy turns out to be a stud. So I think for football, when it comes to recruiting and, some of the other games and travel, I think they really like it a lot. And Brett Yormark, the Big 12 commissioner, he's a longtime businessman who's been working in the NBA, who's worked with WWE. He has had connections to a lot of media groups and media conglomerates. So I think the commissioner of Brett Yormark and his leadership, he's going to keep the Big 12 as a prominent brand. Is it going to be the sexy football brand like the SEC? Maybe not. Of course, the Big 10 is also a very prominent brand too. But I think the Big 12, with Brett Yormark as the commissioner, and some of these other brands that they have, whether it's football or basketball, I think they're going to be a great conference. So Arizona loves being in the Big 12. Don't get me wrong. I love going to California every year for travel, but I also, like going to Texas too. So I think it's definitely Arizona's in a good spot in the Big 12.
Yeah, because college football needs that conference in the ACC to be strong and viable. Because if it just goes down to two major conferences, if you're in those conferences, it's great. But for all the other schools, they can't take everyone. So those two conferences, in my opinion, need to be strong and viable. ACC's had some issues, some schools trying to sue to get out, but it seems like that sort of calmed down a little bit. And here with the Big 12, when they took on all those teams from the Pac-12, seems like they're in a good spot because that is a big thing about the future of the sport. Those two conferences, more so than the big ones, because they're going to be fine, the big ones. They got nothing to worry about. Those other two is really where the sport it has a strength. Last question, NIL. It runs the sport now, college football. How is Arizona's NIL program compared to others in the nation and others inside the Big 12? Is it stronger, weaker? Some schools are on this very early and have strong programs. Some schools got there late, but they've gotten to a good spot. Where's Arizona?
I think Arizona's in a really good spot, and with revenue sharing also coming up here too in college athletics, the fact that Arizona was able to keep essentially their two deep depth chart in the spring,
that's big.
A lot of schools could easily come in and poach their players, and that's why schools didn't have spring games this year, because they didn't want to display the goods. They didn't want to show off the talents, right?
Yep.
And so I think that Arizona being able to keep all of their two deep players is a big sign. And, you know, as far as like comparing it to other schools, you know, I think Texas Tech, with how much money they're pouring into their football program. I mean, heck, they're paying their starting softball pitcher $1 million a year, and Nigel Kennedy, who's a great player, but that's just the kind of boosters that Texas Tech has. TCU, you know, all those Texas schools, they're pouring in money into their athletic programs. So as far as like, you know, comparing it to others in the Big 12, you know, I'm not going to sit here and say that Arizona is
at the top,
head and shoulders above everybody else, but they're definitely not at the bottom.
That's what's key. That's what's key. Don't be at the bottom, because the schools at the bottom, really, that's where the game is played. You got to be strong NIL-wise. And you're so true about the spring game. Funny story. I'm a Syracuse guy. They had a spring game this year. They had a walk-on running back. He had a halfway decent game in the spring, right? Within a week, he was poached by another school, full scholarship, and they're paying. He was a walk-on running back, and he got poached. It's like, are you kidding me? That's why nobody's holding him anymore. And if they are holding him, they don't want no TV cameras there, at least, because they don't want everyone to be able to see it. But that's how crazy this sport has become, where you got other schools watching spring games, which, if anyone's been to a spring game, it's a glorified two-hand touch scrimmage. Not much going on. Oh, that guy looks good. We got to go get him. It's unbelievable where this sport is. Justin, thanks so much for a few moments of your time. Everyone, follow Justin Spears on Twitter, X at Justin Esports. Read his work at the Tucson Star and the Wildcaster, and you can hear him on ESPN Tucson each day, 7 to 9 a.m. Justin, thanks so much. Appreciate it, and have a good one.
Mike, thank you for the time, man.
Awesome. Hey, everyone. Mike here from DolphinsTalk.com. Real quick, I just want to give a thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to smash that like button and subscribe to our channel. Also, just want to say thank you for all the support you provide us here at DolphinsTalk.com and have over the many years. We thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's much appreciated. Without you, there would be no us. I know there are so many other podcast options out there these days, whether it's true crime, the NBA, Major League Baseball, news, politics, and of course, other Miami Dolphins podcasts as well. We really do appreciate you taking a few minutes out of your day, each and every day, to watch our stuff here at DolphinsTalk.com. Also, if you like this show and want more content from us, please be sure to sign up for Dolphins Talk Extra. Go to patreon.com/Dolphins Talk. We have a private message board where you can interact with only extra members and ourselves here, the staff at the website. We have extra podcasts about the Dolphins and also extra podcasts not about the Miami Dolphins. And we give away a ton of prizes. We have a ton of contests that are exclusive to Dolphins Talk Extra members. We give away autographs, memorabilia, jerseys, hats, all that fun stuff. So everyone, please be sure to go to patreon.com/Dolphins Talk. It's $3 a month. It's really cheap. You'll have a lot of fun. Trust me. But once again, thank you so much. Everyone, have a great day.